Chesem and Aleph. Hichnis ofa l'ginoso u'chrovos. Person from Yom Tov took earth and he brought it into his gina, into his garden, or his churva, his courtyard, or behind his house. Mutal chasas, where he's permitted to take that earth and use it for kisei adam. Meaning, you would think, let's see, we'll see in a moment. Let's say you put earth. You'd say very often something becomes. I'll give you an example. The Gemara says a sukkah. That if you have a sukkah l'mala michof, you rule like the chachamim. It's possible. What if you take earth and you fill in the floor? So what's the halacha? That minimizes the distance and it's kosher. Because we say the offer is botel to the ground. It's botel. So maybe you'd say hichtes over the ginoso ulchravoso. Maybe the moment you put it in, maybe you have to keep it in maybe put a tarp down, put it on top of a tarp. But if you put it on the ground, maybe it becomes botel to the ground. Hichtes over the ginoso ulchravoso mutal chasas bo. It's not botel. So if it's not botel, it's not muktzah. See, before we spoke about the Decca notes. The Decca notes was an indication to show that you have relevance to it. That's what wasn't muktzah. One review. Okay, let's see Rashi. It's offer harbe b'bokama. Echod letzorach ninoso letzorach churvoso l'shotchon behen. Yeah, he didn't spread it. It was put. That's even a bigger chiddush. It was brought in there to use as topsoil, but it's still piled up. Still piled up. He says. Hear what he says? Because when he puts it there, his intention is until it's spread, whatever he needs it for. That is, it's not. So that does cause it's not bottled to the ground. You know what he's saying? Even though it's brought in as topsoil, and ultimately it's meant to be spread, but until it's spread, his intent is that for whatever usage he needs it for, that's what he has in mind. Okay. V'amar Rav Yudo, machnis odom moli kuposo offer. He brings in a box full of offer. V'osbo kol tzorcho. Yeah. So Rashi says, what's the difference? You were talking about he brought enough topsoil to spread. We said it's not muktzah. It was daite whatever machnis. Also stam. Nostum bokamech tzorch v'la bekarka abayis. Yeah, before we talk about he brought an enormous amount of earth. Because it's so much, he'll have enough to spread. Says das is that whatever he needs for you, but what about he brought in moldikub, also a small amount? Say anything specific. What would we say the mindset? If the mindset is, since it's such a small amount, it's going to be botil. It's already considered like part of the ground.
But it's in a box.
No, molikos, it's a small amount. Molikos. It's not it's the box, of course it's not part of the ground. It's a box worth. A box worth of earth. A box worth of earth. Right? That's the Chiddush, the Rashi. Lo amina betel no gabe karka abayis aidi de zutro. Since it's such a small amount, it's botel. So therefore the das doesn't mean anything. Okay? Machzot molikos ofi yosef gotzor. Dorish marzutrim shmeit marzutro rabo. That when it's more or less, you have to yichud, you have to put it in a specific location. Putting it in a specific location is an indication that reveals his das, that's his das. 1 second. He didn't spread it. It's piled up in the corner. The mukha milso, the litzrochov, koboilo. It's clear, it's obvious from what he did that he wants to use it for his other usages. Now we have to speak before we said the Gemara's question of ksisha, right? That if it's clumps, he's granulating. So again, Rashi ubofti chuach kamar, it's granulated earth. So therefore, it's not a question of it's purely shayla of muktzah. Sheina muchusir lo chafiru lo ksisha el achvano. So therefore, since we say he left it in a pile, he didn't spread it, therefore it's mukhamilsa the tzroch of kaboilo. Now it's a chiddush over here. Normally, what there's a halacha. Whenever there's an effect, there's a concept of dvarim shablevi in dvarim. If I sell you something, and even though it's not obvious that transaction was a conditional transaction, the halacha is, and afterwards they says, well, when I transferred it, it was contingent on something. So we say dvarim shablevi in dvarim. Since you didn't articulate it, you didn't verbalize it, doesn't mean anything. It doesn't impact on the transaction. Fine. So you'd say, So there's a Keren Orah. The Keren Orah says, it's not that we don't believe the person. We believe the person. It's not he's lying. Moshe Rabbeinu says, when I said it, I meant that. I meant it's contingent on something. It's not that you don't believe him. But there's halacha regarding effects. When you affect something, that unless you actually verbalize it, the transaction is not subject to your intent. So it has to be, so if you have something which what we call an anand sadi, it's obvious that the average person, when he sells this, it's contingent on something else. Okay? So it's equivalent to verbalizing. But if it's not, even though we believe the person, but since you didn't express it, it's Dvar Shaleva, and Dvar, we don't deal with it. Same thing as halacha by a nozir. The Keren Orah says this in nozir. Nozir says, I only became nozir on condition if what, when. So again, it's a chalos, it's an effect. Unless speaks it out, it's contingent, al tanai, then the zero is effective. It's not, we don't believe, we believe him. Okay? I would say, over here, brings in the offer, hushchadok keren zovis. Right? There's Marzutra, it was Doresh Shmei de Marzutra Rabba. So Rashi says, V'lo shotcho. He didn't spread it. Why? The mucha milso de litzrochav hu boilo. Because it's obvious from his actions that he wants to use it for otherwise he would have spread it. Let's say he would have spread it and he says, my das was also, we're talking about it's still granulated. Right. It's not that it became part of the ground in terms of hard. My das is, even though it's spread, I wanted to save time. I spread it, but my das was that if I should need it for Kizeh Adam, seems to be we don't deal with it. Yeah. Right? What's the chalos? We're not dealing with a chalos. Nozir is a chalos. A kinyan is a transfer of ownership. Right? Here we see something interesting over here. That if the fact is that once something is spread, it's bottled to the ground. It's bottled to the ground. See, let's backtrack a little bit. The halacha is, we had before, if you have a deck of notes, let's say the person didn't put a spade into the earth, right? Didn't put a spade in. So the halacha is, and he says, that I will use for Kisei Dam tomorrow. It's not sufficient. You have to do an action to indicate. So that changes from a muktzah status to a non-muktzah status. But over there, I'm starting. It's a chiluk and a karka. It's part of the ground, right? It's ofet techuach and whole. Here, I'm bringing initially. I'm spreading it, and I said when I spread it, I never meant that it should be negated and not be used for kisei adam. So we say because the action is mukha milsa, right? It's not mukha milsa, therefore it's muktzah. It's not obvious. Because normally when a person he wants to around.
So he has to have intent and he has to verbalize it. If he's spreading it.
No. If it's obvious from the circumstance, it's a pile, then he doesn't have to say anything. We say his intent is for whatever the need may be, I have that in mind. So I think this is the pshat. What's the halacha? A person spreads earth before Yom Tov because he wants to raise the floor. And then afterwards he needs some earth. And he takes some of the earth off the ground. What is that? It's makalkel. Forget about muktzah. I'm talking about on the deraisa level. Right? It would be, he's damaging the floor.
Right.
Since based on the action he did, right. How do we see it? Where is the floor now? The floor is that spread, even though it may be loose, that becomes the floor.
Right.
If a person goes and we said, it's more than esher masukah, and he puts in a dirt floor, right. And he says, I only put it in there to store it there, but he spread it from wall to wall. Is it a kosher sukkah, not a kosher sukkah? Since that. But I only meant to store it there. To me, the floor is under the earth. It's irrelevant. So it's based on the perception. The perception of people is, where's the floor? The floor is the surface. That's the surface. So the way, in terms of its function, negates his das.
Right.
Negates his das. This is like the Gemara says, it would be boto daiti tzkolodom. So it could be, even if he would say it, even if he would say, the earth that I'm spreading, I'm using for my own, what's his name? Let's say earlier. See, even before we said Hichnis, offer Harbe, Boka Mechel Tzorch, Inosel Tzorch, Kurosel, Lishotrom him, Ozmachlo, Tzovor, Daite Aluyo. So from there it's mashma that after he spreads it, it's not Daite Aluyo. And then the question is why it's not Daite Aluyo? Because once he spreads it, he doesn't want to ruin the floor, or because once he spreads it, it doesn't make a difference what his das is. We say, Boto Daite Itzkolodom. Right? That's the Shaila. I think from afterwards you see it's Boto Daite Itzkolodom. Like the Gemara says in Sukkah that if you take sosos,
You take pillows.
if you take clothing, and bedding, and you fill in the floor, it doesn't make a difference. And he can be a phenomenally wealthy person. He says, this is my floor. No. We say his das is Boto Daite Itzkolodom. We don't deal with his intent, because the average person sees this as this is not the floor. So if people see it as the floor, so the reason why it's not Daite Aluyo is because the average person, once he spreads it, that's the floor itself. Okay?
What should he do? Should he set a pile on top of the floor?
Yeah, he should have it piled up.
Prepare it and that's it.
No.
Okay,
He brings it in, he has a truckload of dirt, topsoil delivered. But it hasn't yet been spread. So we say the average, so in fact, it's not the muktzah. It's muktzah. Because it's like if kiss. If you have building supplies, right? You can't use it for anything else. Because building supplies are meant for building. So if you have topsoil delivered, I would say it's for spreading. That's what its purpose. If that's the case, you're not permitted to use it for anything else. Because its purpose is muktzah.
So spreading the field or spreading in the house.
Right. So we say no, that a person's intent is that until it's spread, if he should need it for anything, he wants to use it for that. That's why it's not muktzah. But that's the chidush. That even though the ultimate purpose is to spread it, to use it as topsoil, but until it's spread, a person's mindset is, if anything, he should need it for anything else, he wants to use it for that. No, because that's muktzah machshon kiss. Because of its value, a person doesn't use it for anything else. That's the reason. That's muktzah machshon. There's not a muktzah machshon kiss over here. There's topsoil. It can be used for anything. It has multiple purposes. There, its purpose is specifically for this, like koros we had at the beginning, right? That's muktzah machshon kiss.
So we can use the topsoil if it's in the truck, wherever it is.
Or it's piled up.
Either way.
But I'm saying, but if it's spread out, even if though he says my intent was that, doesn't make a difference what his intent is. Because this is seen as the floor. Once it's seen as the floor, it's irrelevant what his intent is. Okay? So Tosas asks, what's the chiddush? Rav adds, first we quote, that a person is machnis, often the ginos chorvoso, person brings earth into his garden, behind his house, he's permitted to use it. And Rebbe says, even moli kuposo. So Rashi says, so Tosas says, what's the chiddush? In Tomer, mabo lohosef al braiso, diktoni afilu hichnus ginos chorvoso, koshke moli kuposo, right? He's asking the other way. If it's moli kuposo, if you bring in a large amount of topsoil, which is obvious, it's for to use as topsoil, that it should be muktzah. The chiddush is it's not. So once you tell a person brings in a box full of earth, that's not sufficient for topsoil. So what's the chiddush that it's not muktzah? That's Tos's question. So understood it's not muktzah. Yishlom the free Rashi necho. Shichlis of it liginos amar shichlis harbi biyachad. Kolz machutz over daito olov. That we say when he brings in an enormous amount of topsoil and it's all together. So we say as long as it's piled up, his mindset l'chot tzorcho. And it's not negated, doesn't become part of it. Offer, he brought in a small amount. So because of its small amount, it should be bottled to the karka. The chiddush is it's not. The whole mold kuposo offer of it. Hear this. This is what we're going to see in the Gemara Amud Beis. You could have a situation that even it's not muktzah for one function, it'll be muktzah for another function. I would say it's only lechasos both to cover kfekisi adam or whatever it is, but for other needs, let's say the Gemara speaks about to cover tzoah. Let's say he has some uncleanliness in the courtyard, a child dirties, and you want to cover it with earth, like covering something with sawdust. Maybe yes, maybe no. So you can have something in one function it's not muktzah. Another function is muktzah, which is a chiddush. I mean, it's not muktzah if it's, but we'll see. If it's designated for one thing, it's limited to that. It's not. You can't use it for multiple purposes.
So how do we understand the hammer? If that's the case, how do we understand the hammer?
Just keep hammering away.
Thank you.
No. Why is a hammer muktzah?
You have a double use to it.
Why is a hammer muktzah? A hammer, you could break nuts as you hammer nails.
Right. But what is?
So when the person says, "I will use it for nails," what does that mean? Does he negate it for breaking nuts? Well, that's his primary usage of it.
That's the primary use.
But he never negated it for the other. It has multiple usages.
So
because its primary usage is muktzah kli l'shem lach l'yisur, unless you mean its primary designation is to do something that you're not permitted to on Shabbos and Yom Tov, it's binyan, building, hammering, putting, right? Therefore, unless it's a guvon l'komo, unless you want to use it for permitted usage, or you need its location, you're not permitted to move it.
So that's the breaking of the nuts.
Because he could equally, and when he uses for one, he doesn't mean he doesn't want to use it for the other.
Right.
But let's say you have a let's say you have a knife, surgical scalpel, and the person wants to use that now to cut meat. It's not permitted
Touch it, right.
because of its value and the way he takes care of it. It's negated. He doesn't want to use it for anything else. Okay, but there the usage when it's something which you're not permitted to do on Shabbos and Yom Tov, like Izmul Shel Mila, right, or Koros. You have building material. You're not permitted to build.
Right.
Here we're saying a greater chiddush, that even though in one context you can use it, the offer, as he says, but you can't use it for something else.
Right.
Okay, we'll see the Gemara number base.
So if there are two uses, one that makes it muktzah, one that makes it not muktzah. If it's predominant use, it would make it muktzah, then you can't use it for anything.
Unless if it's a kli, you could, like a hammer. It's predominant because it could be easily used, even though its dominant usage is for building. But if you want to use it to break nuts, hammer nuts, you can. You want to take a screwdriver, you want to open a lock with a screwdriver, just stick it in the hole, turn, you could use it. Even though a screwdriver is binyan. It's kli shem lach l'yisur, doesn't make a difference.
So what's this for to say that when you put together allowance or it's included within it that he could also cover? That's why are we saying in this case over here when we go in the lot, it's okay. We presume that the cover is included.
Because he has so much, he could use it multiple usages. He has a small amount, maybe it's only something much less. Maybe it's something that comes out more often.
Why this sort of not others? He has so much. He has so much because he doesn't mind to be in other words, we're differentiating that when somebody put aside a little bit, then it's fair to say that he intended it for anything. But it's really for spreading or like once this is opens the door for alternative use, why is it more natural to say that alternative use?
I mean, if you have less, we say it covers everything.
Right. And when it's more, it's okay for us to say that also includes covering. Something about covering.
I mean, the way I understand this, it really taking off part of the first teretz. If he has a large amount, he wants what it should be used for topsoil. Right? That's a large amount. Therefore, even if you can use it for something else, he doesn't want to minimize the topsoil. He doesn't want to minimize it. So therefore, its usage is less than more. When he brings in moli kapos, which is a small amount, it's not enough for topsoil. So it's not enough, but still it should be botel. The chiddush is not botel, therefore you use it for anything. You understand?
You might think that small amount might be used to fill in the floor.
No. The small amount is my needs, whatever my needs may be. Whatever they need. So what's the chiddush of a small amount? It's not botel. If it's a large amount, it's understood it's not botel. But I'd say something else. That since the intent was to use as topsoil, it's muktzah for everything else, right? And there I would say its usage is limited l'chasos, only to cover blood or to cover something unclean. But let's say you need it for other usages. I say no, because if you have too many usages, you can end up without topsoil, right? But if you bring in a small amount of earth, what's the value of a small amount of earth? It's not enough for topsoil. So, but I think it's muktzah because since it's such a small amount, it's bottled to the karka. It becomes negated to the ground, subsumed by the ground. So that's why you can't take it. The answer is it's not. Once it's not, therefore you use it for multiple usages.
So the fact that it's a positive command to cover the blood is not relevant to whatever use you want to use it for is okay.
The small amount.
Mhm.
The small, right, exactly. Let's see. Meisveg. Koi, a shochnos of Yomtiv. If you have this a koi in the way, a buffalo. A buffalo is a suffix, maybe a suffix chayo. That's a koi. It's a question, is it a domesticated or undomesticated? It's domesticated, you don't cover its blood. If it's undomesticated, you cover its blood. It's a suffix. You're not permitted to slaughter on Shabbos, on Yom Tiv. If you slaughter it, you're not permitted to cover its blood. So the question is, if he prepared earth, why can't he cover its blood? He didn't prepare earth. Even if it's not a suffix, you can't cover its blood. Why can't you cover the blood? Cover it, right? Could Rabbi Yehuda? Yep. The koi. One second. It's shochto em chassid dom vi so l'chassid Rabbi Yehuda. Right, Rabbi Yehuda says machnas only molikul posmas makol tzorcho. Whatever it is, even though it's a suffix, right? You should be able to use it. L'tamech l'chassid beifakiro b'deka notes. A better question, right? Earth, you could say, what about his efakiro? Efakiro had muchano. He had ash. Or had deca notes we had offer to koach. You have a granulated sand, he put a shovel in before Yom Tov. It says, but he says what? It says in the Brayso, Ein mechasna is domo, you don't cover its blood regardless.
Right.
Whatever the statement is. So what are you asking? It seems to be, why can't you cover contributo? It's a blanket statement. You don't cover its blood, even if you have Efa Kiro, right? Even if you have deca notes. You have ash, spent ash from before Yom Tov. 1 second. Elo de Leslie. See, what do you say? It doesn't have. Meaning, emchas dom means you can't go do an overt act of kisui because this question of binyan, this ksisha, whatever it is. Hochanamid Leslie. Yochi ma'yir yosofik afilavati namilo. So what does the Brayso speak about? It was a suffix, a suffix chay, it's a suffix, whether the obligation is to cover its blood or not. Even a regular, a definite chayu, right? A deer. If you don't have it available, so what are you supposed to do? You're not permitted to violate Yom Tiv for Kisei Adam. So says, Lobi boy, come on. Lobi boy, vadaish, lo lishchoit. Where you have a definite chi of Kisei Adam, it's understood that you're not allowed to slaughter because you're entering the situation. You're not able to fulfill the mitzvah of Kisei Adam. Abel sofik emum shem simbus Yom Tiv lishchot v'lechasyo. But if it's a sofik like the koi, maybe for the sake of Simchas Yom Tov, you slaughter it. And you won't cover it, and you won't perform. It's only a suffix. Kamash malon. That even a suffix not. Now let's understand.
Suffix not cover the blood.
If it goes to sub, therefore Simchas Yom Tov becomes an overriding factor. If it's a varichiv kisui, then you're not. Let's understand, Monisha. If we hold halacha suffix the rice l'chumra, mido rice l'chumra, right? There's the Magam and Rambam and all the other Rishonim. All the Rishonim hold primary sheet is the Rashba, suffix the rice is l'chumra. If you're in doubt regarding the Torah law, you deal with it stringently. Midorais l'chumra. On the Torah level, you have to be machmir. Rambam says, "So the rice l'kula, l'chumra midrabanan." That you only go l'chumra on a rabbinical level. So the Gemara, according to Rambam, reads well in the Havamina. I would think, well, you have a vari chiv kisei adam, even for Simchas Yom Tov, you're not permitted to slaughter because how do you go and how can you mevatel a chiv d'oraisa of kisei adam? But a koi where at best or at worst, the chiv is only rabbinical because some of the rice is lakula. So maybe there, in Mokum, there's a chiv jarbon and Simchas Yom Tov should be the overriding factor. Kamash malon. No, we don't say that. But according to the other Rishonim, what's the? Of course not. So what was the vadei chiv of suffix? It's suffix the rice l'chumra, right? I mean, how you simple the Gemara over here? You have the question. I'm saying, if you learn like the Rambam holds Savi the rice normally is Lakula. So why are we stringent regarding the Raisa? Rabbinically we're stringent. So let's say I have a koi. I have a question. Do I cover its blood? Don't I cover its blood? Right? Savi the Raisa, Lakula. So maybe I'm permitted to slaughter it, even though I have ash. I have no means to cover its blood. You're permitted. Why? Because at worst, what are you violating? Rabbinic law. So we say, since
Rabbinic
it's
law is to be strict.
to be strict. So you're violating the rabbinic law to be strict. So because it's within the context of Simchas Yom Tov, because you're not going to have meat otherwise. So we say that becomes the overriding factor. For the sake of Simchas Yom Tov, you slaughter the koi. Kamash Malon, the Rai says you don't do it. That regardless of Simchas Yom Tov, that it's not the overriding factor, you have to be machmir. And if you have to be machmir, we don't allow you to slaughter unless you have the ability to cover the blood. But if you hold this, according to the other Rishonim, if so, the Rai says l'chumra. What's the havamim? Because it's a sofek that Simchas Yom Tov should be an overriding factor. So the Rai says l'chumra.
Especially like the Rav said last week that Simchas Yom Tov is only with the rest of the people
That doesn't bother me. Good.
I think that's the Rambam that did to begin with.
Okay. Well, let's say Simchas Yom Tov would be the rice. This makes a difference. So in this, you have a chiyuv, right? We're not saying Esed Ochalosa, say over here, right? So if that word, what's even the consideration? Let's see Tosis. Isa L'chasyu could Rav Yehuda. Gemara asks, why does the Bride say Koi? You don't. If you hold like Rav Yehuda, you should cover it. Machdash Mali Kuposo. Person brings a box full of earth, you should be able to use it.
The case of Matzah, he brought it in on area, right?
Yeah. Okay, let's go further. We'll get back to Tosis. Omriktoni Seifo. If Shochto Emechasin is Tomo. It says, if you slaughtered it, you're not permitted to cover the blood. You're not the price of a koi. Koi ain't shochten also b'yom tiv. Tim shochto ein mechases damo. So post facto, you're not mechases dam. You don't cover the blood. But the funny safe of shochten ein mechases damo mechlau. B'disle askinon. 1 second. Rashi from Ritani safe klom bishlam ein shochten the ratio. Itzuk is gamrit. Lo tema nishchot mishum kovid yom tiv, below kisui. Right? That's what the Gemara says. You may think, for the sake of Simchas Yom Tiv, since it's a suffix, you should cover its blood. And lo sevi l'ktoni im mechasin. Either lesle chadam mahani l'chasois. If he doesn't have one of these, they fakiro dekanot to cover my yitzuk lashminon. Hashta vadi mechasin, suffering me boy. El the shmamino b'diislei, the vadi mechasin shmin suffik lo. Yeah. Let's see this. What's the first question? Tony saving shochto mechasin is domo. It says if he post fact he slaughtered, you're not allowed to cover its blood. Mechlau b'diislei askilon. Yeah. It says by koi, if you slaughtered it, you can't cover it. You can't cover. We speak has or doesn't. The Rashid says if shoch, you're not permitted to slaughter. So that's what we said. Even though it's a koi, it's only a suffix. Simchas Yom Tov is not an overriding factor. But it says im shochto im chasnas domo. But if you slaughter, you don't cover its blood. Of course, you don't cover its blood, right? Does he have it? Doesn't he have? If he doesn't have its poshut, where are you going to get the earth from? You're not going to say, evidently he has. We're saying, even though he has, you don't. The question is, why don't you? Right? Evidently must be because the earth that he brought in is negated to the ground. It becomes part of the ground, which is not like Rav Yehuda, right? Mechlal Divdisle Askinon. So, evident, what are we talking about? The Gemara really is saying, why, if you have Eifekir, why not? If you have Deka notes, why not? So, Gemara says, the Leslie. That's what the Gemara has said on the first side of the page. He doesn't have it, right? Elam Rabba Eifekiro Muchan Levada Mi Muchan Lesofik. Yes. Eifekiro, if you have a Varechiv, you have a definite obligation, then it's considered prepared. But if it's a Sofik, ain't Muchan Lesofik. Sofik my time or loy. Why for Sofik? Why can't you use it? Why can't you use Eifekiro? The COVID Guma. You hear this? Because what's the heter? If it's a Sofik Chiv, normally you must say, you say, Asid Ochalosa say. There's a definite obligation. The assay overrides the los assay of digging a hole, which is los assay for malocha. But if it's sofek, it's not a definite obligation. Is my time to cover guma? Vadi nami covered guma. 1 second. So and if it's a definite obligation, also make this. What do we have to talk about? A koi, a sofek. Eluk the rababo, ochanam the rababo. That what? Because he said earlier, Rashi said it was makalkil, right? Shochat elo kidrababo. He said it's speaking about avetichuach, right? That's rababo. It's granulated sand.
Where do we have it?
Shabbos ain't tzorchel afro. The Gemara says even though it's drabonon, even though. But the Gemara says covered guma, the Gemara says rababa, because Rashi learns makalkel. That's what Rashi learned. You're damaging. Since damaging is only strabonon, Simchas Yom Tif is an overriding factor from makalkel.
What's the damage?
He's damaging the ground
Oh, just by digging the hole.
by digging the hole. You're not the sand you're taking out. You're not granulating because it's granulated already. But actually taking it out, you're digging the hole. You're ruining the surface. It's not a straight surface any longer. It's Simchas Yom, that's only rabbinical, because Rashi learns it's makalkel. Because if you don't need the hole, you're damaging, it's destructive. Therefore, Simchas Yom becomes the overriding factor. Okay? So we say, Elom Araba, Eva Kiro Muchan Levadi Muchan Lesofik. The Eva Kiro, which he pre-designated, is prepared for a definite obligation and a Sofik obligation. Someone says, Sofik my time alone. Why not for a Sofik? The COVID Guma. Because you're making a hole. Vadi nami kovet guma. You also. So why for vadi yes? Elot kidrababo. Which means because it's makalkel. It's destructive. Hochanami kidrababo. So say the same thing by sofek kidrababo. If it's only drabonon, it's question simchas yom tiv. Elo sofek my timer dilma ovet ksisha. Sofek you may granulate the clumps of earth that are intermingled. So it's a vadi namai, there's a mishum ksisha, and if it's a vadi, it's not a koi, it's a deer, right? If I'm concerned, the ofet tichuach is otug. I'm concerned there may be clumps, so even by vadi, the same gzero. Vadi nami nigzim mishum ksisha, vadi kiovet ksisha osi asid v'chadochalos asay. If there's a definite obligation, so even if he's koseish, if he granulates it, it's asid ochalosa say. The asay of kisei dam overrides, supersedes the losa sem losas komalocha. Gemara says, ema dami the osay asid ochalosa say go milu betzaras namisad mitzitzis. The beidna to come aker lav komukum lasay is called beidna. When do we say asid ochalosa say? Where I have a conflict between the positive and negative, and one, it's either one or the other. So we say the asay overrides the negative, but when does it override it? It's not you first violating the negative, then you're doing the asay. It's simultaneous, similar to kalayim b'tzitzis, right? So that's his question. Over here, if you're going to granulate the clump of earth first and then put it on it, the asay and the los asay are not taking place simultaneously. First you're violating the los asay, then you're doing the asay afterwards, right? That's what Gemara says. So he says, "For vada, we allow it." Somewhere says, "Emidom amino and says the holosa say go mila betzaras tamid tzitzis the beidna do kamake lav when he's uprooting the lav kamukim lasay he's fulfilling the asay hochanam beidna do kamaka lav no mukim lasay But over here, it's not the case. Here, he's first violating the law of Ksisha, of Losas Kumalocha, then he's doing Kisi Adam. So, number says, Olokash. It's not difficult. The Bahadi, the Kosish Le Mechasi Le. That as he's granulating directly over the blood. Directly over the blood. 1 second. So therefore, if it's a vadai, we allow it. Why? Because it's a vadi chiyuv. But koi, which is only a sofig, I don't allow it. Okay?
In the very simplest case, you got the koi and the earth has been prepared in advance. Do you cover the blood or do you not cover the blood?
That's
Here
what
we have to do something to override something negative, dig the holes or granulate. If it's prepared in advance for the koi, do you or do you not?
That's what it says. For the same reason why you do it for vada, you should do it for a suffix. And for, right? There says no, vada is not seg. We say asid ochalos asay. Right? Koi is a suffix. You don't have asid ochalos asay. Someone says, what kind of asid ochalos asay is? It has to take place simultaneous.
But there's no negative, is there? I mean, the earth is prepared in advance.
Yeah.
And the pile is there. You cover certainly for the deer, but do you cover for the koi? Is there some?
Yeah, I think you do. Because it's a suffix if you have to know. So
you think they're more strict?
Yeah, we are for sure. We are. That's the premise of the discussion. That we're just not sure if you're chayav with this animal with the rice and the rabbanon. So here you didn't prepare. That's what we're trying to understand. Under what circumstances? I think we have to push for sure you have to.
Just listen, finish over here. Das esim doch los asay. No milu tarasen sam mitzitzis. Mer says the beidne komaka lav komukin lasay. Hocho beidne komaka lav lo makamesay. He's been kosation. Then he's doing the kisui. Mer says lokasha the body the kosish komachasi that he's granulating directly over the blood. Okay? Meaning that's also called simultaneous. Right? Even though when you granulate it, it has to drop.
Right.
But that moment, that's called simultaneous.
Okay.
Climates is literally simultaneous. As you're wearing the shatnez, the combination, that's mitzvah tzitzis. But Gemara says, kosish komachasi sof yom tov aseyu lo saseyu. Right? Yom tov was asdechul. What's the model case? Kalayim b'tzitzis. Right? So it says it's a shatnez, it's a love. If tzitzis overrides, that's where everything's derived from. So if I have an asay accompanying the love, because besides losas melocha, it says tishbos, right? You have to refrain from loch on Yom Tov. Benas tochlos is lo seviese. Yeah. Elam aravo, efa kiro daito levadi v'daito l'sofik. We said earlier initially that efa kiro, the person's attempt is only where it's a definite obligation, not where it's a suffix obligation. In dat l'sofik, I mean, it's an interesting concept. What kind of concept is this? We say that, we said earlier, muchan klov is muchan lodam. Something that you have in mind for an animal is permitted to you.
Good.
Why? Because a person doesn't negate from his mind anything that conceivably he could have some value out of.
Right.
And yet we're saying over here, even though what does a person have with treifa? Nothing. Person's mindset is, if I can have any benefit from it, I don't negate it. Right? So over here we're talking about, I set aside earth to cover blood.
Right.
Vare chiv, not a sofik chiv.
Right.
Where it's a definite obligation. If it would be a definite, undomesticated, you'd be able to cover the blood. But over here, because it's a sofik, his mindset is not to use it for a sofik.
A lot of people tend to thinking that.
What? But it's a chiyuv. Why should he think that? It's still a chiyuv. There's a chiyuv to cover the blood. What difference make if it's vadi sofik?
You can think in terms of a cow, you can think in terms of a deer. But maybe it's such an exception, he doesn't think of a buffalo. And all of a sudden, the buffalo appears.
No. We're talking about a shochtin.
Yeah.
Okay? We're saying even if a kiro, no, then the buffalo is muktzah. The buffalo is not muktzah. Buffalo is not
It's
muktzah.
not muktzah, but
But
covering
we're
the
saying you're not allowed to slaughter it because you won't be able to cover its blood. You have Efa Kiro. That's the question. Why can't you slaughter it?
Because the buffalo brings with him the suffix of covering the blood. The deer doesn't, and the cow doesn't. The koi brings the suffix along with him.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Does it make the buffalo muktzah? Let's say he
Well, if you can't slaughter the buffalo comes to muktzah.
And that's what they're saying, that you can't cover his blood. And now it's saying, well, in order to cover it, you have to do what it's saying in law is saying.
Yeah. Elam Rova, Efa Kira Dato Levad Min Dato Lesofik. But if he doesn't have whatsoever, what's the chiddush? And we say you can't dig and you can't granulate. So we're talking about Efa Kira Dato Levad. He has Efa Kira. Basel Rova Tamid Rova Hichnish Over Lechasas Botso. A person brings earth to cover feces in his courtyard.
Right.
Mutal Lechasas Bo Dam Tzipor. So it doesn't mean feces. It means something which is not pleasant.
Yeah.
So we say you could cover the blood of a bird, dam tzipor, right?
Right.
Mut l'chasbo dam tzipor. Dam tzipor, but if it was brought in to cover dam tzipor, which is a vari chiyuv, oz l'chasbo tzoa. If it's brought in for tzoa, you bring in earth to cover feces. It's not simple. Is the courtyard going to get dirtied or not dirtied? It's a suffix.
Right.
Yet, if it's brought in for that, which it's a possible need, definitely he has in mind a definite need.
Okay.
So therefore you give him a chas dam tzipor. But let's say it was brought in for dam tzipor.
Only.
That's his mindset.
Right.
So then what? The halacha is you can't.
It's like putting stuff on the roof. You can't use it.
No, that's not doing that. No. There, factually, it becomes inedible. Here's it's the same earth.
But he's designated that I can't use it.
Okay,
Only
we'll stop here.
use it.